Greetings to everyone. We will talk about the issue in the Philippine society, specifically in terms of our economic standards. So these are the researchers. I am Justin May Esther Rosas, and I have here my co-researcher, Jan Marie D. Delim. Malnutrition, not only a problem in our society and health, but also in our economy. Why? A brief explanation about this is that children, or our next generation of learners, are deprived and starved, leading them to be forced out of school and education, since they can't perform well due to being malnourished. This affects their thinking skills and ability to educate themselves, resulting in no read, no write individual and will be jobless in the future, or doing jobs that have little to no improvements or much worse, unethically ones. All of this will affect our economy. Unemployment rate will rise. People that are forced into labor jobs due to being uneducated and illiterate, and crime rates. We can see now how malnutrition can affect our economy, from being a child to an adult. Best example is that a child who is malnourished in urban areas is mostly influenced by their parents who don't have a standard education or didn't go to school at all. From this, the children suffers from being deprived of nutritional food and forced to eat what is being served at the table. In worst cases, these children are forced to do things that will drastically decline their whole being, such as inhaling drug B to induce their hunger, snatching, and other unethical doings in their early lives. Malnutrition in the Philippines. Around 95 children in the Philippines die from being malnourished, where they are deprived of food and water, especially when it comes to having the proper nutritional value coming from what they eat and drink. Moreover, our nation is still facing fast evolving challenges about the food and water sources that decline the overall health of the affected individuals in both rural and urban areas, especially when it comes to underprivileged ones. The underprivileged ones are mostly residents and citizens that work labor jobs under the what so-called big corporations, companies, and industry that makes their workers slaves. They are required to work tirelessly with below minimum salary, and what's worse is that they can't afford the consistent rising of human needs and services. In one case study, workers who are working in a 9 to 5 job in urban areas with below minimum wage are on the verge of health decline, and their families are mostly deprived of standard nutritional value. On the other hand, rural workers such as farmers and planters are struck the most with these corporations and industries that control their livelihood as well as their families. This results in malnutrition linked with poverty and inequality in both rural and urban areas in the Philippines. Now my partner will talk about its importance to discuss the issue malnutrition in the Philippines.
Thanks for discussing malnutrition in the Philippines, partner. Now for the importance of it. Why is it important? First, to know the origin of malnutrition and its importance to the modern Philippine setting. Second, to value the solution in addressing the issue about malnutrition. Third and last, to implement the addressed solution and action to resolve malnutrition. The cause of malnutrition in the Philippines are mainly because of poverty and inequality, where first we have the discrepancy of food supply that has the standard nutritional value crucial for the affected individuals to meet, especially for the children or youth. Next, we have families who can afford to buy this food or meal that meets the needed nutrition, forcing them to buy cheaper ones that can affect their health and well-being negatively, or they will starve in a day or in some cases, eat only a meal consists of carbohydrates, mostly rice, mixed with salt or oil with no nutrition value at all. Next, we have, or even worse, inhaling rugby to induce hunger that drastically affects their overall health. These actions lead to malnutrition. There are two types of it, marasmus and kwashiorkor. Marasmus derived from severe malnutrition, where children are thin and have a fragile body, almost a bone-seeing physical appearance. While on the other hand, we have the kwashiorkor, occurs when children lacks protein in their diet, where they have a bloated stomach or abdomen. Malnutrition affects mostly children that are sought to be the next generation of different dreams and goals that have potential to deliver something for the betterment of our country.
That is all about the importance and modern cause of malnutrition here in the Philippines. Now, partner, let's talk about its history and its origin.
Sure thing, partner. For the hypnosis of the historical setting, the issue about malnutrition in the Philippines rose in the mid-1980s during the late Marcos dictatorship. This happens particularly in the Negros Island, where the sugar production are being controlled by the late Marcos administration, specifically by its associate Robert Benedicto and its corporations or monopolies, the Philsicom and Asutra Corporation. They controlled everything from trading and its planters and farmers, which led to the sudden increase of sugar prices, leading to most products and sources to increase also. The island suffers from the Marcos dictatorship, leading to what's known to be the Negros famine. Also, the rise of malnutrition in the Philippines skyrocket. Poverty has also been a rising challenge where prices from the commercial market, particularly sugar and sugar products, keeps on increasing. People revolt starting from the Negrense farmers and planters, the social volcano, due to the thousands of families on the island suffering from being malnourished. Now, let me and my partner discuss the root of the problem, the detailed analysis of the origin and history of malnutrition in the Philippines. My partner will lead the discussion about it. Now, let me and my partner discuss the root of the problem, the detailed analysis of the origin and history of malnutrition in the Philippines. My partner will lead the discussion about it.
The root of the problem. To begin with, we will take a step in the Negros Island. The Negros Island considered to be one of the richest islands in the Philippines, since they are main source of sugar production and plantation. Both domestic and international sugar trade markets happen in the island, where it was the top contributor across Southeast Asia. Most products are affordable even for the poorest, with the standard nutritional value and individual needs. The Negrense farmers and planters and families are considered to be part of the Philippine social elite. They are valuable as gold since sugar here in the Philippines is part of their everyday life, from beverages to food source. During the mid-1980s, a drastic change begins to happen in the said island, where the Marcos administration and its associates find the claws it's a way to control what they value the most, their sugar production. The late Marcos administration, with its rising power of the late President Marcos, granted him special favor and privilege outside his own administration. This extension branches out in almost every business, industries, and corporations in the Philippines. This was also stated by the First Lady, Imelda Marcos. They basically own everything from telecommunications to plantations, including the sugar production and industry. This is strengthened by its martial law that changes everything. Now, let my partner talk the rest.
Now, for the Philippine Exchange Corporation, or the PHILEX, a government corporation established by the late President Marcos, held by one of his cronies or associates, Roberto Benedict. where all sugar exports are controlled. Since selling overseas sugars are on demand by sugar traders around the world, particularly in the United States, the Marcos administration took the opportunity to gain wealth and prosperity. However, the international price of sugar crashed, leading to Felix's downfall. This took a massive drawback in the late Marcos administration. After this, the Philippine Sugar Commission or PhilScom and the National Sugar Trading Corporation (NASUTRA) has been established. The late Marcos administration established a much more rigid control in the sugar production and industry. The creation of the Philippine Sugar Commission (PhilScom), where it was given the authority and the power to act as the singular agency engaged in the buying and selling of sugar, along with the Presidential Decree 1192 handed over the established commission. This is where the sugar production and industry in the Negros Island was completely handed over the Marcos administration as their own business, later referred to as their monopoly. Roberto Benedicto is back again at the trade market and to the sugar industry as the head of the Philippine Sugar Commission or PhilScom with the National Sugar Trading Corporation (NASUTRA) to control not just the international sugar trade market but as well as the domestic one. The same practice and method are once back: manipulation over trading and pricing, discrimination and abuse, and assassination of farmers and planters who rebel and protest by the paramilitary, and the full control of the whole sugar plantation, production, and industry. Many sugarcane planters, farmers, and their families suffered by the hands of Robert Benedicto and the Marcos administration. From this, the Negros famine occurred. The monopoly of the late Marcos administration permanently inflicted the livelihood of the sugarcane planters, farmers, and their families. As one of the richest islands of the Philippines, many of them are deprived from food and water sources, especially their younger ones. That ultimately leads to malnutrition. Over 192,000 sugar workers, about a million sacadas or sugarcane fields and plantation, and their families are affected. This effect spread across the nation. The effect of the Marcos administration and the sugar monopoly felt across the entire nation. All sugar and sugar-related products prices skyrocketed to an unbelievable amount, leaving most Filipinos to starve and get malnourished. Infants and children are the most affected from starvation and malnutrition, where the needs of the child to grow are getting expensive each day, like milks, vitamins, and supplements. The poor families are slowly dying from starvation and malnutrition, and the mortality rate increases day by day. Fast forward to the modern Philippines. The Negros famine and the issue of malnutrition is linked to our modern setting, while corporations are increasing and demanding more power for their own beneficiary, forcing labor jobs with below minimum wage or no payment at all, especially in our farmers and planters and other workers in rural areas, that they are more likely to act as a slave. This affects their livelihood, moral values, and families, where they are deprived from having nutritional food and there is scarcity in clean and drinkable water in their places. While on the other hand, in urban areas, big corporations control most people, labor jobs, and works where they are forced to work under a minimum wage or sometimes underpaid, with a continuous increase of prices of commercial goods and services that affects their financial management, resulting to buy cheaper yet undernutrition foods and meals. And in worst cases, they are forced to starve themselves just to prioritize other important bills. Additionally, most of these workers have families that are deprived from nutritional food, vitamins, and supplements. All for the root of the problem about malnutrition, to the Negros and to our modern setting. Now for the solution, my partner will take the lead to discuss it.
So for the solution in addressing malnutrition in the Philippines, we came up with 5 solutions. First is the awareness about malnutrition. All Filipino citizens must be aware about the issue of malnutrition, its history, and its implication about it into our modern world, on how it affects our economy, linked by poverty and inequality that also results in health and social issues. Awareness can be spread through education, schools, and social media platforms. Second is the voices coming from the People's Revolt. This is similar to the uprising revolt during the Negros famine or the social volcano, where Negrense farmers and planters fight for their rights, leading to the Escalante massacre, where almost 30 farmers died and 100 injured during the protests of Roberto Benedicto and the Pilsucom and Nasutra Company abolishment in the Negros Island. This action serves as the foundation for the People's Power Revolution that marks the end of the reign of the Marcos administration. We can reflect from this and see how impact of our voices are there in terms of revolving what is right. Third is the implementation of laws and executive orders. The implementation of laws and executive orders for the rights of labor workers in both urban and rural areas must be reconstructed and regulated accordingly. There are already established laws and executive orders, yet the only problem is the mass proper implementation of it that is noticeable not only for their targets but also for the people of the nation. Fourth is the nutrition education. The education about nutrition must be a must for school administration in both public and private, where subjects about it are implemented that prioritize health and the well-being of the learners by having physical activity, exercises, and nutrition into their everyday life. These learners are the next generation. They must be living in a good health, condition, and well-being, as well as being educated from health standards. Lastly, the government action. All of this will be put in action by our government since they are the ones that have the power to make proper decisions and justify implementation of the stated solutions. That is all for the solution to address malnutrition. Now for the reason why it must be implemented, my partner will talk about it.
Thanks, partner. Now for the reason why. For the reason why, which is to consistently minimize and eliminate the issue about malnutrition in the Philippines, where labor workers such as farmers and planters are paid accordingly with benefit and insurance, where all labor workers would have minimum salary monthly and payment for working overtime and during holidays, where the poorest of the poor must be regularly assessed by the government programs, including non-governmental programs, not just for financial support but for them to make money on their own terms. Education about nutrition and physical activity must be prioritized in the subject MAPE in the K-12 curriculum for the students to have a healthy well-being, where children across the nation, both rural and urban areas, are no longer prone to malnutrition, where every Filipino citizen are no longer affected by malnutrition that is also linked by poverty and inequality. That's all for the reason why. Now for the modern implementation, my partner will discuss about it.
Now for the modern implementation. Modern implementation are awareness about the issue of malnutrition and its history and the abouts of implementing solutions prior in addressing the stated issue. Me, Justin May Esther Rosas, and my co-partner, Jean Marie D. Delim, believes that through the power of social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook can help to spread awareness to elders and especially to the youth that are promised to be the hope of the society or the pag-asa ng bayan in search of leading the movement to change our nation. Spreading awareness about the malnutrition in the modern world is not sufficient enough since we need to trace back its origin, which we can relate and reflect from it. We will see how impactful the voice of Filipino citizens can get when we work and fight against one similar to what happened during the social volcano, People Power Revolution, and during the March for Lenis Robredo's presidency. we will revolt for our rights and claim that we sought for the most. This is for the betterment of the country. We will work until the very end and will continue to be remembered for what we have done for our nation. This is where education and the schools will take place, where they will educate and teach the next generations to come about the promise of eliminating malnutrition linked with poverty and inequality across the nation, where they are promised to get better jobs, have a better quality of life and well-being that will positively affect our economy and society as well as the health for of living Filipino individual. As an educator, both of the researchers believe that prioritizing education is a stepping stone in eliminating malnutrition linked by poverty and inequality. Understanding its history and origin is also crucial since it will help us to determine what actions that have been taken before our time. School administration, with the help of the government, must help educators to educate and teach the learners where they are individuals that are well educated enough that can address and provide solutions to eliminate the stated challenges and issues. A generation of well-educated Filipinos will lead the country to its best crafted by the educators and education of the Philippines itself. That is all for the modern implementation of the stated solutions to address the issue about malnutrition in the Philippines. Now for the last part, the conclusion. My partner will discuss it.
Thank you, partner. Now for the conclusion. For the conclusion, both of the researchers believe that malnutrition can be resolved by the intervention of the government by providing a better law and executive order for labor jobs including their rights, a well-structured training programs, a consistent development program for food, water, hygiene, and sanitation monthly in the most target rural and urban areas, a better education about nutrition and healthy well-being in schools, a generation of well-educated youth and elderly about malnutrition linked to poverty and inequality. Furthermore, awareness and knowledge about the issue still stands as the foundational aspect prior for it. That's all for the conclusion. I hope you learned something from us, and thank you for listening to the issue about malnutrition, its history, and connection to the modern setting in the Philippines. Partner, do you have any takeaway messages for our listeners?
Yes, partner. Malnutrition is still an issue in our nation, and we researchers and future educators believe that education is still one of the key elements needed for Filipinos to have and to understand about malnutrition, its history, and how to resolve it in our current setting. Again, we believe that someday, a generation of well-educated Filipinos will lead the country to its best crafted by the educators and the education of the Philippine itself. That's all. Thank you everyone for listening and have a nice day ahead.
Thank you, listeners. Thank you for listening to Matin Podcast. For more contents, follow us to our social media platforms here posted in the description below. We see you guys next time.